Hello, everyone. My name is Leslie Supnet, and I'm on the programming committee of the Gimli Film Festival. Thank you for joining us for the virtual Q&A with director of The Last Autumn, Yrsa Roca Fannberg. Hi, Yrsa. Thank you for being with us today.
Hello, and thank you for watching the film. It's very nice because we've heard quite a bit of Gimli, so.
Oh yeah.
It's it feels like there's a connection, even if I've never been there. But
well, hopefully in the future we can have you here in person. So if you wanted to talk to us about how The Last Autumn, where did the idea for this documentary come from?
My generation is maybe the last generation that often spent summers on farms, like a kindergarten, but we had to work a lot. In my case, it wasn't really like that, but my mom was a friend with a farmer.
Okay.
So I spent my summers there. And then that farmer's daughter was telling me that her dad, who's also a farmer, he was quitting to be a farmer, and it kind of struck me the emotional feelings of leaving that behind. And many farmers, they kind of breed, they breed their stock. So to have that cut, it's something quite, I don't know. I imagine it to be quite emotional. At the time, I didn't have time, I didn't have time to prepare. But I think the feeling stayed with me for a while. So when I heard that Ulfar and Odni were quitting, I kind of immediately got drawn to the idea. So it had been kind of with me, this whole thing for a long time, even if actually the official preparation moment was quite short, because I knew it in February. We handed in the application in April, and we started shooting in the autumn.
So it's quite fast.
With a couple of days in the summer, but
right. So that's quite fast.
Yeah, it's really fast. So, and then I during that time I went quite a few times to Ulfar to just like be with him and prepare everything.
Right. And so Ulfar, like the community he's in, do you want to talk more about that place? So
yeah. I mean, it's one of the two most remote habited areas in Iceland, maybe, if I'm not wrong. I grew up in Sweden, so I have a little bit of a foreigner's eye, and sometimes I'm a little bit ignorant of facts, I'm a little bit, but I came there first through a friend who was teaching in the school, and there were like 5 students at the time. And then all the kids were kind of interested in my cameras, and it's like, because I take like an old cameras, and they was like, oh, what is this? So I said to one of the farmer, who's also the headmaster, why don't you bring me and I teach them, So they brought me, and I taught at the school for a whole week. And then, then I really got to know the whole community, because it's really small, and I ended up going to the knitting club, and it was really nice. It was really lovely. And from that, this was like in 2014, I think.
Okay.
Or maybe 12, I came the first time, something like that. And then I was one of the herders for all these years. I go there every autumn to help them to herd.
Wow.
So Ulfar doesn't want me to go to like dangerous places, because he says, you don't know how to do this, and you just put yourself in danger. Which is probably true, but
so when you go, oh sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So I'm, so I guess that also meant that I kind of had the trust of the community quite quickly, but at the same time, because they rely so much on other help, they are actually extremely open, it's a very open, I mean.
So were you helping her more than just Ulfar's farm?
Yeah, all the farmers help each other because,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
there's no way you can do it on your own.
Yeah.
Just, you know, it's, so yeah, that's what I've kind of been doing. So in the shooting, they were like, Yrsa, you go up that mountain. I was like, no, I have a different task now.
Well, yeah, so you were witness to then I guess the decline of the farming life there, and that kind of takes me into the next question about the poem we hear at the beginning of the film, titled "Poem of the Genesis," and I like it because it really sets up the story to like take it in as very cosmic. It's like this part of this cosmic cycle of death and rebirth, and it felt almost post-apocalyptic to me, you know, how there's this feeling of, and can you talk about that poem a bit, like how it came about?
It came in a very different form quite at the beginning of the editing, you know, these things often happen in editing. Mm-hmm. And it was also to bring the time to a different time, you know, because we are so much there with them, to bring it, you know, there has been a past and there will be a future, you know, to make it kind of cyclic. And, you know, even if, you know, so it was meant to be kind of that kind of genesis where you, the time before the humans arrived, you know, and it kind of, you know, it sprang from the beginning, like, you know, the humans wouldn't have existed without the sheep, and the sheep wouldn't have existed without the humans, because they needed each other. Mm-hmm. And it was, so we kind of, me and the editor, we kind of just delved into like the Eddas, you know, and the Genesis. And then I was really struggling with the text, you know, it's, you know, first we had a quote, and I was, you know, for the viewings we had for the film, I found I was explaining what I wanted to say, and then it's not really working, you know. Right. So in the end, it's best to get the professionals to do it. So I got this Icelandic writer, Sean, who is kind of like a genius in so many things, you know, and we gave him like the basis of it and some words and blah, blah, blah. And so it came about, he wrote it like in 15 minutes. Yeah. And we gave him, you know, because the other black and white part in the film, you know, there's certain words that resonate in the beginning and for that part, you know, so it was meant to also the time when you're not with Ulfar, you know, it's not, right. It's kind of a timeless time, if you know what I mean. Oh, totally. Yeah. It's very beautiful, those parts. Yeah. And that's your photography too, the analog. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So how did you go about structuring the film? Because there are those moments where there are those pauses without Ulfar, and, you know, there's clearly like time. Like when I was watching the film, I was very aware of time, and you know, the story beyond the farmers. Yeah. I mean, and there's so much time to reflect, and can you talk about how you structured? Yeah, I mean, regarding time, I think, you know, and it kind of hints into these little things, you know, we have talked about the end of the world since humanity came across almost, you know, so that was also meant, I wanted to be it more than just 2016, you know, so to kind of, you know, without, I don't know, in a subtle way, you know, and that's why we use the same song in the end and the beginning, you know, because it's kind of cyclic, you know, the mountains would always stay there, and who knows what will happen in the future. Maybe, you know, someone will take over, maybe time will change, you know. Mm-hmm. And it also came, you know, so there's like little hints of resonance through the film that sometimes are very subtle, but you know, in the 18th century, 1786 or something like that, there was like this huge volcanic eruption, and Iceland was Danish, so the Danish government decided that it was inhospitable to live in Iceland. And they wanted to move the whole population to Iceland. No, to Denmark. And that didn't happen. So that kind of sets what is happening in that area at the time. You know, it's kind of, the government has neglected it for so long because it's just so remote. And I didn't want to make the film to be totally pessimistic. You know, it's very easy to go on about how life was better in the past. You know, we don't know.
Right.
You know, we might have like certain nostalgia, but I didn't want to fall into the nostalgic trap, you know.
Right.
Because it's very easy when you're dealing with these things. And that's also why I use these kind of elements, you know, and the same for like the last scene, which is like, hopefully you have, the film has settled in, and you listen to a song and it resonates from the beginning, and then you realize, oh, it's all starting again. And that's why you have the grandchild as well. You know, sorry, I'm going on a bit, but that's because she is kind of the future, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, the grandchildren are great. They're totally because they bring into the story, like they place the story in time. Also, like same with the radio, the children, because you know they talk about Instagram, and you're suddenly, you know, as a viewer, you're like, oh my gosh, that's right, I'm present now. And there is that really, really beautiful scene with Odni and her grandchildren looking at the photos of the landscape, the horn of Reykjanes, and it's very symbolic, and how, if you want to talk about like just the landscape and why, you know, I know this question, I'm going to ask it, it's very obvious, but why did you choose to shoot on 60mm?
No, I just want to finish off the last, how did I
Yes, that's right.
In the end, you know, I had like a few things, you know, there are sheep and there are not sheep, you know, that was kind of the obvious way to structure it. So, and I also wanted in the beginning of the film to settle in the time, it's just them, you know, you just feel the farmland, that is also very slow, you know, and then the whole family comes, and that's kind of the change in the film, you know, it's something has changed, you know. And so in some ways it was quite, but then, you know, we were fiddling with like little bits and pieces, you know, forever. I was waiting for the sound designer for a long time because he's very popular and he's very good. And but luckily, because then suddenly certain things clicked, you know, the poem came in the last, you know, when I was waiting, you know, in the final bit, and the photographs also, they were there, but the whole singing part came like in the week of editing, in the week of the week before we were going to sound mix, you know, so. So, you know, the whole structure of the film was quite easy, but then there was these little details that, you know, we were working on for quite a bit.
Yeah, and the sound designer, he also worked. There's another film we're playing as part of the Icelandic series.
White Day?
And The County.
Yeah. I mean, he does a lot of fiction, and I don't want to say anything, but I think the sound design he made on this film, it's so, because it was shot on Bolex 60mm, which nothing is synced, so it kind of was recreated a lot, you know. So it was work. I mean, he did a great job. You know.
The radio, I really like that part of the film too, as one of the only other parts of the outside world that comes into the film.
Yeah.
So were there different radio shows that they listened to that you really wanted to?
I mean, that generation and also myself, you know, but a lot of people only listen to one station.
Okay.
You know, it's like station one. And, but I don't know, obviously it was kind of constructed afterwards because we wanted this natural sounds of the environment, you know. But he listens to the radio all the time, you know. I love, in his barn, he has this radio in this plastic bag And this plastic bag is an Icelandic food chain, but it's like the plastic bag that was 20 years ago. Now it's orange. So I love the fact that he still has the same plastic bag. And, you know, so I really wanted, and the reason why we have the death announcement twice, you know, it's not because we're announcing death in an obvious way. It's just like if there's one name, you focus too much on that name. It's also something that they listen to know who has passed away, you know, because this is how we know things in Iceland, how someone passes away, if you're not on Facebook or something.
Right. And I here too, people still read the obituaries here in the newspaper.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't get the national newspaper, you know.
Mm-hmm. So hence the radio.
It's the radio. But yeah, and they, you know, they, of course, they want to be informed of the outside world, and they listen to a lot of different programs, you know, their knowledge is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was important to have that as a reflection of the outside world, you know, as like a window.
Right.
To.
And, you know, another part that was really striking to me was, so that herding scene was on the edge of my seat. And also because I loved how you used a Godspeed song, the Lamb's Breath. Am I correct? Is that, and how did that come together? Because wow, it's just like a lightning bolt out of the sky, right? Like
it just fits so perfectly, you know. I have to admit, I didn't know about them, even if I do know quite a lot of music, you know. I heard the name, but my editor just put it on and we just started playing with it.
Wow.
And it was just like, wow, it really goes well together, you know. And then we even found out the title of the song, Lamb's Breath, and it was just like from, you know, it's one of these scenes that we never changed really.
Shooting it, how was shooting that scene?
That was quite complicated because it's one of the scenes where, you know, controlling a farmer is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
And Ulfar is also depending, and he doesn't want to bother the other farmers and blah blah blah. So we kind of we stayed quite a bit in the distance, and then it was, you know, and I also wanted, you know, we recorded the walkie-talkie straight away, you know, and so it became clear from the beginning that was going to be part of the soundtrack, and early on, you know, I was struggling to find kind of a narrative to it, so, you know, or find a way to salute it in the beginning, but then, you know, somehow it became this kind of almost outside of the film, almost like an abstract element. Not abstract because it's also very real, but like a sensory experience, if you want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, and it just, it worked quite well, you know. I was quite, you know, it's one of, like I said, it's one of the scenes that hardly changed.
And it's like a scene where, because this was the last season of that particular.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because there's still farmers there, you know.
There's still farmers there. How many farmers are left there now?
4. There were 9 when we started shooting. That year, 4 quitted, or 3, and 1 the year next year. But Ulfar is there from April to November, you know. I don't know what he does.
Okay. So he's still there with Adni and in the house?
Well, she works in Reykjavik, but he's retired, you know, so she's a bit younger. So but she spends all the holidays there and stuff.
Okay.
He's just much happier there, you know.
Yeah.
Because they still have this house and the land, you know. It's not something they're going to give up.
Right. And does he still fish?
Yes.
Okay.
But but his health is not as great as it was. So he kind of, you know, he fishes a bit, you know.
And so do you still keep in touch then with Ulfar and the other farmers there?
Yeah, I go there every autumn, and I try to go there as often as I can. And he spends the winter, like November to whatever, April in Reykjavik, and I meet him quite often, and I phone them, and I always phone him after a screening I've been to and tell him how it went. So he's yeah, they're like close friends, you know. They became very good friends, and you know, I buy smoked meat from the other farmer. You know, Ulfa still smokes some meat in the autumn. So
Yeah, and the film, it's very much, it felt like uh, you know, of course there's the sad reality of the changing of that lifestyle, but it was also a celebration. I felt
yeah,
that you're very much celebrating that time and that place. And I'm just curious now, what is next for you? What are you working on? I know you're not only a filmmaker, but you work in photography. You make beautiful analog photographs, and I read in your bio that you're also a watercolor painter.
yeah. I haven't been doing that so much lately, but I do some watercolors. Yeah, and as a filmmaker, I also have to work. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I have a paid job in an old people's home.
Mm-hmm.
Because the funding is so little that, you know, you just have to, it kind
Oh, I
of
know.
basically pays to pay other people and maybe yourself. So I work, and my next film is actually in the old people's home.
Oh,
With my friends.
that's cool. Are you also shooting on 16mm for this one?
Yes, yeah. It's just like got the first development grant, so it's in the very, very early stages. So, but it's also something that, you know, is quite close to me. I know quite well, you know, because I worked there for quite a bit, and you know, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that sounds really.
And yes, I want to shoot it on 16mm, and I don't know. I think there is a way of the process that is really enjoyable, you know, and I think yes, you can translate that process to digital, but I think the tension of shooting on film is quite, you know, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, and it really comes through. Because I read somewhere, or I guess I watched an interview of yours where you were talking about how you had this like mini DV camera or something, and that someone told you it was too old to use for filmmaking, and you know, what perfect way to, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna shoot on film.
Yeah, I was just like, bloody hell! I refuse to buy a camera for every film I make, you know, and but this was the cinematographer's cameras, you know. But
right.
I do have a 60mm, but I still need to buy the lens for it. But so yeah, and it was a, and it's also keep you on your toes a bit, you know, and I think you're a lot more focused when you're shooting, and the whole planning, you know. I mean, the last autumn had a kind of a script, you know. We didn't stick to it like religiously, but we stuck to it quite religiously. But then, you know, that allows you to be alert of things that come up that fit into what you're looking for, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than, you know, trying to fish things that you're always going to be too late for, you know.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Well, Yrsa, thank you so much for sharing your work with the Gimli Film Festival this year.
Yeah,
we're hoping that one day we can meet in person and have you at the festival.
Yeah, it would be nice.
And I wish you all the best of luck, and that you stay well and safe out there.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a very lucky situation compared to other countries.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You have
we have so much space as well, you know, and we're an island, and you know, there's been a lot of, you know, so far yeah, it's been a blessing, you know.
And you know what? I just realized too, like watching your film during the pandemic, although yes, I wish I could have seen it in a cinema in a big screen. It was perfect for watching in quarantine at home.
Yeah, it's quite, I don't know, even if it's slow paced, I think it's also quite meditative, and it kind of, you just enter it.
Yeah, and it just gives us time to think. So
Yeah,
yeah, thank you so
exactly.
much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And you too, stay safe and keep up the good spirits.
Thank you, Yrsa.
Yeah, thanks.
And to the audience, I just want to remind you that check out our other film lineup at gimlifilm.com and the other films in the Icelandic film series.